Good afternoon, everybody. Firstly, I hope you're enjoying the Partners Summer School so far. My name's Helen. I'm a careers consultant here at Newcastle University Career Service. So I work closely with students from all degree disciplines in both group work and one-to-one settings. So today's session is our Ask the Experts Business, Marketing and Media session. Delighted to be introducing you today to two Newcastle University graduates who are working in this space. So what's going to happen during the session is both of the Toms are going to give an introduction to themselves. They'll talk a bit about their studies at Newcastle University, and they'll also talk a bit about what they've gone on to do since graduating as well. And then the rest of the session will be time for Q&A. So without further ado, I am going to hand over to our first panelist. So that's Tom Rumboll. So Tom studied business management at Newcastle University and is now CEO of a company called SYNETIQ. So I'll hand over to Tom to deliver his presentation. Over to you, Tom.
Amazing. Thanks, everyone. What a great opportunity to be here. Thanks for taking the time to listen. So what I want to talk about briefly, I've got no slides. This is a story rather than a presentation. I guess a bit about my studies and then career. Try and leave you hopefully with a bit to think about, and then some questions. So yeah, I'm Tom Rumboll. I know I don't look it, but I'm 44. I graduated from Newcastle in 1999, a whole other century ago, unbelievably. So I suppose a bit about my journey into that. So first person in my family to go to uni, so it's a big deal. But my pride and glory kind of halved by the fact that I've got a twin brother who also went to uni at the same time. But he also went to Newcastle. I've got quite a convoluted way of getting to Newcastle University, actually, and then a failure in my exams in the first year leading to a change of course, then actually finding the thing that I really most loved, which was business management. So I studied from 96 to 99 business management at the Armstrong building, and that's where I kind of found my mojo really for studying. Loved the business aspect, the economics, the marketing, and the variety that the course gave, actually, and entrepreneurship was the bit I was most interested in. So I had a fantastic time at my time at uni. We can probably touch on that in the questions. Brilliant time, made some friends for life and opened my mind. I had some very closed and limiting beliefs. I'm from a place called Sheffield, and there's a private school in Sheffield, and I just thought everyone that went to a private school was like the people that I used to see out and about in Sheffield. So I closed my mind that anyone that went to private school actually could be nice and normal and helpful and friendly and kind, because my experience was posh kids that looked down on me and my friends. Anyway, that was one limiting belief that going to uni actually dispelled, which has really helped me. So I graduated in 1999, didn't have the money or the desire to go traveling, wanted to get stuck into my career. So I got on a graduate scheme. It was with Lloyd's TSB at the time in their business banking division. Why is that relevant? Well, it's because my dad used to work in the steelworks and got made redundant, and he had to become a sole trader. He was a builder. He only retired in lockdown at 71. So I knew I wanted to work with people that were running their own business. I had no reference point, no game around bloody stock trading or corporate world. I didn't know anybody that lived in that world. So I wanted to become a small business advisor, the person that works in the local branch that lends money and helps businesses, helps people that work for themselves. So I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. And I had 2 years up in Newcastle after graduating. That was amazing. With a bit of money and a new job in the city that you're a student in, with still friends that are all around. That was an incredible 2 years that led to me being in Newcastle for 5 years. Absolutely mega. And there I got on a program. So that was super, super helpful. Corporate disciplines, time management, negotiation, sales, any kind of training course you can think of that a big PLC offers to a graduate, I kind of soaked up and did. Moved into the world of corporate banking, down into Leeds and then other places, and then ended up lending quite large sums of money to reasonable sized businesses. And one of the businesses that I lent money to, I'm now the CEO of that business, unbelievably. So that's how that came about. But basically ended up keeping in touch with one of the managing directors of business. I probably lent them about 20 million. They put a four-way merger together and asked me to come and help them put this merger together. So overnight, I became the executive chairman of the UK's largest in what we do, which is salvage and dismantling. So I've gone from small business advisor to corporate banker to CEO of a scrap car business. I can't even believe it myself some days. Claim to fame, we were on Top Gear last Sunday, if anyone didn't see that and wants to. And I was on Radio 4 this week. I can't believe they let people from Sheffield on Radio 4, but they did. And we're in the circular economy, and that's where brand marketing, SYNETIQ comes in, and some of the things that I learned that have stuck with me: brand stretch, brand extension, all these things that you'll learn. And we created the SYNETIQ brand from nothing. It didn't exist. It was a merger of 4 companies. And the brand and the name is Synergy and Kinetic put together, SYNETIQ. Synergy, greater than the sum of its parts, took 4 businesses and made the one business that became way, way better than the sum of those 4 parts. And Kinetic, motion, momentum. And since I've kind of helped create SYNETIQ, 750 people, 300 million turnover, 20 locations, we've grown by 90%. And that's because we've got the right brand and the right proposition. And I would argue probably the right CEO, because I would say that because it's me. So we've truly got a fantastic business that is circular and is about the waste hierarchy, about reducing resource use, reusing things that can be reused and repurposed. So we've got an amazing sustainability and environmental message that I'm super, super passionate about. So I guess that takes us to today. So I'm wanting to do this for a number of reasons. One, I love my time at uni, but I was a bit lost at times. I started at Northumbria and transitioned, so I didn't really have many friends initially, and I threw myself into football and clubs and various other things. But also I was just lacking belief, frankly, and I built that over time through my time at uni, but also more importantly through my career. And I'd soaked up all the opportunities that came my way. So if I think about, if someone had told me 10 years ago you'd be the CEO of a 300 million business, I wouldn't have believed them. If they told me 5 years ago, maybe. If they told me where you guys are now, I would never have aspired to be at that level. So I feel really, really grateful, but I suppose I just want to try and impart that on you guys, that you've got loads of time. Figure out what you want to do, get to know yourself, get to know what you're passionate about, get to know what you enjoy, get to know the areas where you're really interested in and passionate, because if you are, that will carry you along. So I'm really passionate about circular economy, making sure that there's models out there that do the best for the planet, but also make money, otherwise it's not sustainable, and also provide the best service. And I've really found my niche really in that. But I didn't know that when I left uni. I didn't know that when I joined Lloyds Bank, where I was for 14 years. I thought I'd stay there. And I remember once when I was 21 being told that I'd got potential to progress to this certain level in the bank, and that level was 50 grand salary. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe I would ever could aspire to that level. And I look at what's happened since and think, wow, how did that happen? And how it happened was the last bit of advice before I probably stop really and give more time to Tom and time for questions is, when I reflect, what I've always been good at without knowing it was pushing myself beyond my comfort zone. So if I'm too comfortable in something, I will find opportunities to get uncomfortable. So the first time I ever spoke on TV, the first time I ever presented to a new client, the first time I ever joined a new sporting team or society or club at uni, going to stuff on my own. So it's just, that's something I think that I guess I just wanted to share in terms of, I wouldn't hold myself out as the most successful person in the world, certainly not. But I've exceeded well beyond where I thought I'd ever get to, just by jump at anything that will give me a new experience, whether it's career or personally. And the feeling of being uncomfortable is awful, but then what that drives me to do is work really hard, listen, learn, read, talk to others, check in on myself, reflect. And then what I found myself doing is getting really comfortable, whereas 6 months before I was dead uncomfortable. So I remember standing in front of 21 people telling them that their jobs were at risk. I was absolutely bricking myself. It wasn't a great experience, but I'd read, I knew my employment law, I knew what the vision and the strategy and the direction I wanted to go in, and it went pretty well, such that the next time I did something like that, it's still not great, but it feels more comfortable. So I guess what I would just say in closing to you guys, which is a total meandering kind of conversation about all sorts of stuff, is don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone, because nothing great was ever achieved within one. Get to know yourself, what you're passionate about, how you learn best, and surround yourself with people that know you too, that you can turn to when inevitably it gets a bit rough. And I guess finally, don't be in a rush to fix on something. Trust me, if I can go from business banker lending £5,000 to the local sandwich shop, to lending 100 million to big corporates, to then moving into a circular economy scrap car business, like, anyone can. So don't limit yourself, and don't let other people limit you. And I think with that, there might be some questions afterwards, but I'll give some time to Tom, and probably now regret not doing some slides to keep me on track, but hopefully interested anyway.
Thank you so much, Tom. No, really, really interesting. And I think that advice about, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is really sort of important for you guys about to start university. It can be unfamiliar, new environments, new people, people from maybe different backgrounds that you've never come across before, and that can feel quite daunting. But equally, getting stuck in and being open-minded and saying yes to lots of different opportunities can open doors for you in both your personal and your professional development as well. And I think, again, Tom really stressed that importance of, it's okay not to know. If you're unsure about your career direction, perhaps right now, that is completely fine. And that's what university is there to help you figure out. And there's lots of support in place that the university can provide to help you along the way. So now handing on to another Tom. So Tom Chandler was a master's student here at Newcastle University, so studied e-business. He's now head of paid search and shopping for an organisation called Mediaworks, which is based right here in the Northeast. So I'll hand over to Tom, who's going to introduce himself in a little bit more detail to you before we move over to questions. All right, over to you, Tom.
Cool. Well, hi everyone. So I am a local lad. I'm from a place called Whitley Bay, which is about 25 minutes from Newcastle. So my university experience was, I had quite a sort of a soft landing in terms of university, because I wasn't ultimately traveling from afar. But that's not to say that I didn't find university challenging, because ultimately you're there with lots of different people from different areas, and ultimately you are still a stranger, despite sort of having familiar sort of surroundings, etc. So my sort of university career started, I did an undergraduate degree in computing and information science. So this was like a really techie, data intensive type of course. And I quickly realized within the first year that this wasn't kind of the route that I was going to go down. I wasn't going to be a software engineer, etc. My skills, or what I enjoyed doing most, was far more on the business side of things, speaking to people in this type of format as an example. Ultimately, having more of the softer skills is something that I thought that at the time, that's what I need to be moving perhaps more towards. I continued to do the technical stuff and got my undergraduate degree, but I definitely at that point sort of lifted my head up and had a real I was at a crossroads in terms of what did I actually want to do, and that's where I had the opportunity to come to Newcastle, or kind of continue at Newcastle in doing a master's degree in e-business. And what e-business, and it's be rebranded at Newcastle, as digital business. So it's looking at the business components that are fundamental in terms of the financials, the economic side of it, all of the core components of what you'd expect from a business degree, but then layering in some of the really important skills that are here now, such as digital marketing. There was a big area that I looked at as part of ERP systems, about business enterprise. Ultimately, my master's experience was fantastic, because I always refer to it as being a hybrid type course. I was able to learn about all of the business side, as well as keeping some of the technical skills, but really, really relevant technical skills that are things that I use sort of to this day. And in saying that, one of the best things about the course was all of the modules are very different to one another. You'd have, as I say, things about data enterprises, about databases, then you'd have things about digital marketing. Ultimately, there were so many different modules and courses that I was getting sort of taught, which was fantastic. But then I was at a crossroads when it came to actually going out into the real world and getting a job, because when I looked to go into the job market, I had an offer. I remember it like really clearly. I had an offer from PwC, which is essentially sort of professional services, sort of accountancy type company, and that was based in Belfast. I had another offer, which was for a company called FDM, which was based in Leeds. And then I had Mediaworks, which is where I'm at now. Now, that sounds great, and it was great. And I was really fortunate to be in that position to have a number of offers, but they were all so different to one another. Was I going to go to Belfast and ultimately become a chartered accountant? Was I going to go to Leeds to become kind of a business consultant? And then was I going to go into performance marketing, which is what I do now? And I think for me, that was at the time, great, but also really stressful, because I needed to make sure that in my head, I was making the right decision. It wasn't necessarily about money. It wasn't necessarily about the location as such. It was about going into a job and a career that I really could see value in enjoying. Now, kind of that leads me on to where I am now. So across those three, I decided to go to Mediaworks, which at the time, speaking to my parents and friends, of those three wouldn't have been the obvious choice, because you've got this really big established, loads of people apply for those types of roles. And then we had Mediaworks, which at the time was a 60, 70 people-sized company based in Team Valley in Newcastle. On the face of it, not particularly exciting, but there was something about Mediaworks that really kind of connected with me. It was the people, the chief executive, who is a founder. Ultimately, it was a place that I could see that this was where I was going to learn and develop and be tested across all areas, from the technical side of things, but also from the softer skills, the management side of things, which again, I was like really interested into doing. So I started Mediaworks in September 2018. So I'm coming up to 4 years at Mediaworks now. So I started essentially as a junior executive. We refer to it as a PPC executive, and it also means within the performance marketing team. You're the junior within the team, and you're given lots of accounts, very low risk accounts, etc. So that's kind of where I started my trade in terms of looking at, and when I'm referring to sort of performance marketing in the team that I joined, it's all about the Google and Microsoft advertising and marketing element. That's ultimately the team and department that I joined. I've been really fortunate in terms of the opportunities that have been presented to me and how the company has grown. And I like to think that my decision to go to Mediaworks has been one that was the correct decision, because now I joined the team at Mediaworks, as I say, as the junior executive with 5 people. That team has now grown to 17, of which I kind of look after and run. But also Mediaworks themselves as a company has grown significantly. So we started, as I said, about 60, 70 when I joined the business. We're now pushing 200 heads, and we've got an Edinburgh office, a Dublin office, Manchester, Leeds, so on and so forth. So how I've sort of rode that wave has been fantastic, and I've learned a lot from that. But also how the company has grown. It's grown from a small company to now an established company that is going to grow more and more over the next few years, and to be a part of that is really, really exciting. So I think ultimately for me, kind of looking back, one of the big decisions I had to make was, where do I want to spend the next 4 years? Do I want to spend it potentially making more money and potentially not being as happy, or do I want to work in a company where it's in my own back garden and I'm for example, interview and recruit many Newcastle University students, and they're always of the best caliber. And doing that for me is something I'm really proud of, to be able to, I say, employ local graduates from local universities. It's fantastic, but it's that big thing for me. And I always sort of look for that and see that within people that I'm interviewing or just having a conversation with. Are they excited by it? Is this something that they can really get their sort of teeth into and see value and grow and achieve? All of those types of components are something that I've had the luxury of being able to do. It's been challenging along the way. Obviously, navigating through COVID was very difficult as I'm learning my trade, but also trying to lead a team. All of those types of components are challenges, but something that has been absolutely brilliant. I wouldn't change kind of the journey that I've been on, because as I say, certainly that transition into university, doing a course that I did find slightly challenging, if I'm being really honest, because I'm not a techie sort of software engineer type of person, but I got through that and then was able to, as I say, transition into a course that enabled me to explore some of the other skills that I was really, I guess, more so in line with. And then obviously coming to Mediaworks, a job that, it sounds a bit of a cliche, like thoroughly enjoy and do like genuinely look forward to coming into work. So that's kind of my story and where I am. So hopefully that gives a bit of insight in terms of where I've come from.
Thank you so much, Tom. And I think, again, really aspirational for students and proof that you don't need to go to London, to get a great graduate job. And equally, an organisation like Mediaworks, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but you probably weren't aware of Mediaworks when you were, studying e-business. And actually, there's so many amazing opportunities with smaller organisations as well as larger organisations, many of which are right here in the Northeast. So if you're from the Northeast, if you're going to be studying at home, you don't want to perhaps leave home, plenty of opportunities for you to build your career in a business media marketing role in the region. Thank you so much to both of our Toms for speaking so candidly about their career history and their experiences. The rest of the session is now your time, students. So if you would like to ask either or both of our Toms a question, please do feel free to write those in the chat box. So we'll kick off with a brilliant question for Tom Rumboll from Nathan. 2 questions in one, prepare yourself. So great question. So what part have you most enjoyed on your journey, Tom? The graduate scheme, corporate banking, or being a CEO, and why? And which role do you think really benefited you and perhaps developed your character the most? Big question.
Yeah, they're awesome. So I'm going to do my best to give you some really good value, Nathan, for this answer. So without a shadow of a doubt, what I'm doing is the most enjoyable. It's the most stressful, it's the most challenging, but it's really, really rewarding, really exhilarating. And I'm pretty much permanently out of my comfort zone, if I'm honest. And I'm probably struggling with a bit of imposter syndrome that you'll have all read about as well. But what drives me is to make a difference. There's two things that drive me, really. One is to make a difference. 2 is to make my family proud. And doing what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and who I'm doing it for and with fulfills those real kind of base level sort of stuff in me. In terms of what has benefited me the most, there's an interesting point, and everyone's journey is different, but I could not, without a shadow of a doubt, have done the things I went on to do outside of the world of banking had I not had 14 years in a PLC. I did every form of training under the sun. I worked it out. I think I had about 100 grand spent on me in 14 years. And I couldn't have done this other stuff in the world of SME, small medium enterprise, without that background. However, once you step out of the corporate world, it becomes impossible to go back, because you get autonomy, you get freedom, you get empowerment, you get consequence, you get, real visibility and real impact. So I got prepared brilliantly in that environment, but I would never really get the chance to fully use all the skills that I got, ironically. And it took me stepping out of that environment to go and use those skills. But I was way, way better and more effective for having those corporate disciplines when I moved into the world of SME. So both, if I'm honest, I found myself in much, much, much more challenging situations out of the corporate world, but better prepared to deal with them because I'd got all the training and skills and expertise and investment and mentoring that I had before. Bit of a long answer, but I hope that gives you decent value for what are 2 fantastic questions.
Thanks, Tom. Brilliant answer. Very candid once again. And I think as well for students, what this shows is that after you finish university, that first job that you do doesn't have to inform what you're going to do for the rest of your life. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to move organisations, to transition into different types of roles as well. So there is a lot of flexibility in the job market in the UK, and that's what makes it such an interesting place to work. I'll move on now to a question for Tom C from Robert. So thanks, Robert. Really interesting question again. So did you find it difficult, Tom, moving into a master's in an area that you haven't really studied as much as other people on the course? So did you find yourself, you were at a bit of a disadvantage perhaps compared to others?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. The short answer is yes, it was certainly challenging, kind of coming into a new area, a new realm, to be honest. But ultimately, how I overcame that was that you do have to really graft to do that extra work, that extra reading to kind of get up to speed. What I'd also say is, and I continue to work closely alongside the Newcastle Business School on the course that I left. So I still kind of know the types of graduates that are or graduates that are going into the master's program, and they're from a wide range of backgrounds. Some people that have been out into the world of work and then have came back in to do a master's, or sort of graduating and going straight into a master's. So I think what you'll find is that you won't be alone in terms of that, almost if you're sitting in a room and you think everyone else knows the answer and you're the one that doesn't know what's going on necessarily because you haven't studied that. That's absolutely not the case. But what I would say is certainly that if you're making a transition like I was from a technical background into more of a softer skills, digital type of business masters, absolutely I had to kind of change or ultimately get up to speed that bit quicker. One of the big changes for me was as part of my kind of computing information science background, is we didn't do a great deal of presentations and standing in front of kind of groups of people. And then suddenly you come to Newcastle and you've got auditoriums with like hundreds of people, and now you've got to do presentations. Things like that certainly test your mettle. But I'd say it's with a bit of, sounds a cliche, but a bit of determination and that extra reading, extra effort that's put in, you'll quickly kind of get up to speed with where everyone else is at. But I do think that you probably you'll be surprised that everyone realistically is going to be in the same boat, and particularly for joining a master's, because there's so many different types of people that will be on that course.
Thanks, Tom. Very sound advice. I might just stick with you. I can see other Toms on mute at the moment. I might just ask you another quick question, then I'll come back to other Tom. So what's been the most interesting media related opportunity you've had, would you say?
So one of the big things that I've had the opportunity to do is within my performance marketing world. We have an event in Brighton, which is essentially the industry kind of leading event. It's called Brighton SEO, which is where all of anyone who's anyone within the digital marketing world attends that. I had the fantastic opportunity to actually headline that, which is in February, March, just gone. So that first of all was absolutely terrifying, because it meant speaking in terms of the number of people was a lot of people there, but it was also a very large group of very switched on people. So it was like all of the marketing directors, all of the the CMOs, everyone that knows something about digital marketing was in that audience. So that was something that was a little bit scary, and it makes you double check exactly what you're saying. But that was honestly one of the highlights of the last 12 months for me. And to be honest, in my career at Mediaworks, being given that opportunity and being able to do something like that has been, or was, fantastic. And it's something I really look forward to doing again in the future, hopefully.
Thank you. And I think that links to what Tom R was saying about, really finding opportunities to push yourself out of your comfort zone. At the time, it can feel perhaps a little bit stressful, but actually reflecting on it, looking back, you sort of really see how that opportunity benefited you as well. Linked to that, we've had a question from Cadence for Tom R. What do you find stressful about your role? You're getting a grilling here. Good question.
Everything, if I'm being honest, but I'm a bit of a stress head, and that's how I live my life. Because I'm constantly pushing myself out of my comfort zone. So, the SYNETIQ are responsible for everyone in it. There's 125 people in a truck on the road today, having to winch an accident damaged car onto a vehicle transporter. It's dangerous. I've got 75 people taking bits off cars who never wear the PPE properly, despite me hammering them daily. And they're cutting the fingers and getting shards of metal in their eye and working at height and lifting massive engines. So there's just a massive health and safety, working with big plant machinery, forklift trucks that have once, reversed over someone's foot, for example. So keeping everyone that works in my care safe, I find incredibly stressful, because I can't be everywhere and I have to trust and set the tone. Performance, I want to make a difference. So I want SYNETIQ to lead our industry to a brighter, data-driven, sustainable, innovative, safe future. So when you set that ambition, you're always going to be, a bit under the pump, because it's always about where we're going rather than where we are. So managing that performance and people, I've got a lot of people that come to me, and most people come to me, sadly, there's something perhaps to learn is, as a CEO, it's great to give out good news, and we see all the clips and the memes, and you give someone a pay rise and you've won the contract, it's a high five. That's 10%. 90% is probably delivering bad news. You haven't got the promotion. This is what your package is, and it was just not what you want. your performance isn't great, we need to do more about that, here's some tough feedback about how you did in that meeting or that engagement, etc. So all of that, because I truly care about everyone that I work with and for, I want to do as good a job as that as I possibly can. So I find all of it really stressful. But that's not to say I don't love it and I don't thrive on it, because I absolutely do. But because I'm so keen to do the very best job with every single thing that I do, you know, I'm kind of, I'm kind of always thinking, how could I do that better? How could have that gone better? What will I do next time, etc., etc. So if I was to put it into pillars, it's welfare of the people that are in my care, it's the performance and health of the business, and it's me checking back in on my ambition. Am I making a difference? And I guess that's, you know, they're the things that keep me absolutely engaged positively, and sometimes it tips over into a bit of stress.
And how do you deal with that stress, Tom? Sounds incredibly stressful. How do you manage that?
Personally, again, I like running, so that I do two things, which is my mindfulness stuff. One, I like running, and I just do that on my own, and I get myself out, and I just find that calms my mind. And the other thing I do is I pick litter, which is probably a bit random, but near where I work mainly, it's this kind of an industrial area. There's always like loads of plastic wrapping, and it's near the DFS upholstery factory. So there's all sorts of stuff blows in, crisp packets, bottles. So at least once a week, I'll just make sure everywhere around my sort of 20 acres is tidy. There's a couple of things happen there. It's a very visible show that I care about my environment and I care about our business. And it also is a really good mindfulness thing for me that, you know, I can just quieten my thoughts as I'm focusing on a repetitive task.
Get that on your LinkedIn profile if it's not there already. I don't think I've ever heard I pick litter when asked how people deal with stress before, so that's really interesting. So thank you. And I can see the questions are flying in, which is brilliant. We've got a question from Denise. I might just ask Tom C on this one. So just thinking about obviously business, perception perhaps that business as a subject is quite broad, it's quite a saturated area. How do you ensure that you get into a high paying job apart from work placements? So how do you maybe stand out and get maybe not even just a role that pays well, but a role that is, you know, perhaps graduate level and something that maybe plays to your strengths?
Yeah, and I think it's a fair point, and one that I would agree with, that sometimes business courses can be perceived as quite broad, and I've seen this many times from my friends where they, for example, struggle to get a job, or also a job that they really like, because they'll say that, oh, I've done business. But so my experience in terms of kind of my career, but also the types of people that I recruit, is that if you do business, I think it's so valuable that you become within the world of business, you find value within something. So whether that be within finance, whether that be within potentially marketing, the economic side of it, I think definitely if you aren't able to specialize in something or show that willingness to move towards a certain direction of speciality, I do think that you'll find it potentially challenging to not necessarily get into roles, but find that thing that really excites you. So I think absolutely, when looking to apply for jobs and things, I think that absolutely the thing that will separate you from everyone else will be that part of what have you specialized in, what have you looked to build on from your business background that makes you stand out from a job application point of view, but also makes you enjoy yourself or what you're doing. I, for example, like really enjoyed the digital marketing side of the business piece that I was looking at. So therefore, that's what I really got up to speed with. So when I was having conversations with kind of companies, etc., they could see straight away that's the way I was like inclined towards. And I think that's so valuable. If you don't do that, the conversations you're going to have are going to be too top line, and they might just have to take a bit of a chance on you. Whereas, as I say, definitely look to specialize or get experience on something specific to get your foot in the door, and also like enjoy yourself.
Great And I think as well, build that network of contacts while you're at university. So we've been encouraging all you partner students to look at LinkedIn and start getting a profile, building that brand. That's something that you can continue to do when you're at Newcastle, and we can sort of help you reach out to contacts if there are specialist areas within business where you're looking to sort of build contacts as well. So plenty of support available there to help you. So loads and loads of questions coming through now. A really interesting question from Louis. A question perhaps for both, so I'll maybe come to Tom R first. So what mistakes do you feel you've made in your career journey? And what do you wish you would have changed about your career path? These are big questions.
Look, Louis, what a great question. We've only got 20 minutes. There is not enough time for all the mistakes I've made in my career in 20 minutes. But to give a bit of value to the question, so truly, glib, try, smug, no, I would not change anything, because where I am today, I mentioned it, is well exceeding anywhere where I thought I would ever get to. So I can't be anything other than grateful for where I sit today. So where I am is where I'm supposed to be. However, in terms of mistakes, it's not that, it's my responses during times in my career. So the mistakes I've made have been about my emotional reactions to criticism, to discomfort, to challenge. And if I stop and think back, they're the things I regret, not decisions or where I've moved in terms of jobs. I cannot have any reservations about that, and I won't. But I've let myself down on more than 10 or 20 occasions during my 23-year working career of how I've conducted myself when I've been faced with some things that have challenged my values or I've disagreed with, or whatever else it might be. And I suppose that's why I was keen just to try and say in my first piece, get to know yourself as much as what you like doing, your triggers, personality types. I always do questionnaires with everyone that works for me. Understand who gets on your nerves, because there's some people that you just won't connect with, and that's not because they're trying to be difficult. That's because they'll be data, they'll be analytical, they'll be reserved, they'll be introvert, and I'm not that person. So I really struggle working for a bank with some people that were the polar opposite of me, and that really meant for me not enjoying myself and also not getting the best out of me or them. So I won't say any more than that, other than say, get to know yourself, but also understand different personality types that exist, and know who will typically you will align to and warm to, and who you won't, because actually that won't be about them. That'll be about perception. So adapting and connecting in that space is super, super important.
Nice. And thanks for that humility as well, and kind of accepting that there have been times when maybe you should have, maybe changed your behavior perhaps in if you were to repeat something. Exactly. Tom C, anything that you would do differently perhaps in your career so far?
Yeah, I think you actually mentioned it at the start, and it's a complex that I've kind of realized that everyone has this in their head, is the thought that London is the answer to everything. So like London's the only place you can get a good job, or London's where all the good companies are, etc. And I think, to be honest, the first year and a half of my time at Mediaworks, I had my eye kind of half off the ball, thinking, how am I going to get to London, or potentially am I doing something wrong by staying in the northeast or something like that. And that is something I look back on now and just think of how ridiculous that was, given, I say, the scale that I've been able to progress to, but also the company, like Mediaworks, Newcastle based, founded in Newcastle, the turnover there, doing the size of the company, kind of trumps the level of competitors we have in London. So I think that's the big thing for me, is just kind of losing focus a little bit in terms of thinking that the grass is greener on the other side. And that's something I look back and go, God, if I'd just been 100% focused as opposed to 80 or 70% focused, what could I have achieved? So I think that's the big one for me when I look back, and it is a frustration of mine, but something that now it's very much focused on what I'm doing and being proud of where I'm from, and being part of the company, not just thinking, as I say, London's the answer to everything and the grass is going to be greener type thing.
Definitely. I think both of our speakers today are living proof of that. You don't have to go to London to build your career, definitely not. Sticking with Tom C, maybe just a quick question from Grace. So thinking about your role currently at Mediaworks, do you work quite a bit within a team? Is there quite a lot of support for you when you first started your role in Mediaworks to help you sort of get to grips with everything?
Yeah, so absolutely. The team, the performance marketing team that I'm in is 17 people. So we have, probably a new graduate or something like that, probably every 3 months, something like normally the kind of scale that we've been growing at. But if I think back to when I joined Mediaworks, team of 5, it was a little bit like, off you go, learn it yourself and like figure it out. And I think that's one of the big things that I've taken forward into management, of like, that's not how you kind of should onboard and bring someone into the company. So like now we have clear training plans, development plans that go on throughout someone's career at Mediaworks, but notably for graduates that are coming from, often Mediaworks is the first job that people will have if they're graduates. So coming into this environment, something that I'm really conscious of because I've been there myself. So we definitely have that kind of structured introduction training plan that gets someone up from not knowing anything about performance marketing, anything about the Google world, and gradually taking them on that journey for the first 6 months, so that after that 6-month period, they are fully up to speed. They know everything about Google and Microsoft and Facebook and all the big kind of tech companies, and are able to kind of deliver on the work for our clients. So absolutely, the Mediaworks is a very structured company, but in particular my performance marketing team, that onboarding and integration piece is absolutely key.
Thank you. So there is a lot of support, and that applies when you start an internship, or if you're thinking about doing a placement year. It's not just, support that you receive once you get the first graduate job as well. Still a lot of questions to get through in the next 10 minutes. So I'm going to do my best to make sure that all of the questions that have been asked so far are answered. Another big, deep life question, Tom R. What management style would you say is most effective for you?
Yeah, I'll be a bit briefer. They've got more questions. So my own, not anyone else's. I think that's the first thing to impart. And what does that look like? And I've read loads of stuff. I did a business degree, so I read 7 Habits by Covey. I read Jack Welch, Robert Greene, Laws of Power, Peter Drucker. Just, if you don't know who they are, read them. They're amazing. And I would also add Atomic Habits by James Clear into that list as well. Super helpful. But in terms of my management style, I would say servant leadership, it's called. It is a thing. Which basically says the leader is there to serve the people that are in the business. So everyone that works for me, they don't exist for me, I exist for them. And that's how I've always approached that. And there's a couple of things that you need to do as a servant leader. Is one, believe in that, first and foremost, so it's not authentic. Secondly, is define reality. Tell people where they are. The best thing you can do for anybody is tell them where they stand, for good, bad, or indifferent. So let's be honest. And then lastly, acknowledge, say thanks. And then in between that piece, it's do everything you can to make the people that are in your care's lives safer, easier, more enjoyable, more productive, more effective, more engaged, more progressive, more innovative. So I could, again, there's an hour of me rambling on in that question. It's a great one, but I would say in 90 seconds, it's that servant leadership, define reality, point to the future with enough clarity that people are excited to follow you there, and then say thanks on the milestones on the journey.
I really like that. Me, when you were asked, in a nutshell, it's my management style that I follow. Fantastic. Helen's question is answered. I'll maybe come to you, Tom C, first. So how important would you say connections are and kind of building that social capital? Is it something that you did perhaps, Tom, when you were studying at Newcastle?
Yeah, I think so. I when I sort of was applying for jobs and Mediaworks, for example, I didn't know the people that were there. But what I would say is there's absolutely a benefit for building your connections. And I think sometimes, like, when I always used to thought like networking was maybe like a bad word or something like that, whatever, but it's absolutely the right thing to be doing, to be connecting with people of like-minded sort of peers, etc. I think that's so valuable, in particular for me now, having that broad network of people that know more than me, people that I can help, etc., is so important, because it like gives you so many opportunities for new experiences, new business opportunities, all those types of things. So definitely the connections and social capital side of things like there's no getting away from it. It is advantageous to look to build your network. So if, for example, you don't have a LinkedIn profile and you aren't sort of connecting with, I don't know, lectures at Newcastle University or local businesses like myself or something like that, I think that there is just, you're going to have an advantage of putting yourself out there.
And I think as well, don't forget that the university is here to support you with all of that. We know that making connections and reaching out to people that you've never spoken to before can be quite intimidating. So don't worry too much about the actual process of doing it. We're here to help you and support you through that. There are loads of opportunities to meet employers like the two Toms on campus through online sessions. Often there'll be opportunities to engage with them as part of your course as well. So there's a lot of employer engagement embedded in your course. That's going to help kind of widen your eyes perhaps a little bit as well to the range of career opportunities that you can go into after you've finished your course. So lots and lots of support there. Just sticking with Tom C, another question from Danish, asking about if entrepreneurship and business was your area of interest, then would economics and finance be a good subject to study? And how would you make the best connections in this area, would you say?
Yes, I think on the entrepreneurship piece, absolutely, finance and economics will only serve you in a positive way. And what kind of experience on that is, a lot of our clients are founders, and one of the things that potentially trips them up is having like that financial competence to be able to understand finance, the flow of money, the language of all of those types of parts. And like my parents are both chartered accountants, so they've very kind of instilled and drilled into me the value of understanding, for example, a profit and loss account. Those types of things are so important. So if you're really interested in entrepreneurship and you want to create your own business going forward, in my opinion, one of the most valuable skills and tools that you'll have is being able to understand money, numbers, finance side of things, because unfortunately I've seen it firsthand where if you don't have that understanding of business, and in particular like the economics or the finance side of it, it can trip you up massively, because you ultimately might look back and go, I haven't been running my business profitably. That for me is something that I've seen firsthand. So if you are entrepreneurial, etc., having that finance background or understanding will serve you very, very well. And from a connections point of view, I think, like to the point that you made before, the university is so valuable in terms of connecting you with the people that are in the know, have been there, done that, and you know what their pitfalls have been, etc.
Thank you. And I think perhaps two things to add to that is that even if you're studying finance or economics, there are student societies that you can get involved in if you're interested in entrepreneurship or marketing, for instance. There is opportunity for you to build your knowledge and your skills in a different area, even if you're studying a particular discipline. The other thing perhaps to add is that within the career service, we have a whole team called the Startup Team that are here to support students who are interested in self-employment after they finish, or setting up their own business, but equally freelancing as well. So there are lots of events and opportunities to meet graduates who've set up their own business immediately after graduation, to help you perhaps understand, more about their journey and the different types of things that they've been doing since graduation as well. So, starting a graduate job after uni doesn't have to mean going to a company and being employed by a company. It could be starting something up yourself as well. And again, lots of support the university provides with that. I'm going to come back to another question from Nathan, and then I have one more question to ask both of you before we wrap up. So really big question, Nathan. Thanks so much to all of you for the questions that you submitted. Brilliant. Tom, did you find that the impact of COVID was hard on the business? And do you think you could have been perhaps better prepared retrospectively for things such as remote learning, contingency planning? Or did you find that it maybe sped up the development of communication between different departments and thinking maybe about the positives that COVID brought to your business as well?
Yeah, great one. So that's not an and/or question or answer. It was both. So yes, it was really hard. The human tragedy of COVID is just terrible, awful, like shocking. And we had a number of people that were close relatives that died in our business, and it took 40% of the vehicles out of our business almost overnight. And there's a business who's, if I'm thinking of Good to Great, Jim Collins, another book you might want to read, the flywheel of my business is vehicles, because without vehicles we have nothing to sell. And we found ourselves 40% down. So far so bad, but because of the resilience and brand and the piece that we'd done in creating SYNETIQ in the 12 months before COVID hit. 23rd of March was lockdown. So it was a year and 3 weeks after we'd formed. We were really clear. We had accepted leadership. We had a high performing team, and we had data and tech, and we managed to flip brilliantly, furloughed fantastically well, looked after our colleagues, those that were shielding, those that were we've got caring responsibilities and that were medically vulnerable, such that we actually completely, and again, notwithstanding the human tragedy, there's a Winston Churchill phrase, never waste a good crisis. It gave us the opportunity really emphatically and quickly and carefully to completely reshape the business, such that for that entire period and still now, we are a much better business as a result. I can't say that with any massive glee, given the human tragedy that was COVID, but the necessity to act quickly and the clarity of that direction combined meant that actually, as a result, the business weathered that brilliantly and today stands as a much better business as a result.
So thank you so much to Tom C and Tom R for your insights this afternoon and for giving up your time on what I'm sure is a really, really busy day for you to share your insights with our partner students. Our final question for you this afternoon is, considering your time at university and everything that you've perhaps done in your career so far, what's the one piece of advice that you would give to our partner students? I'll come to Tom C first, if that's okay.
Yeah, mine would be find something that you're interested in and really, really focus on that. Focus on getting better at that. Focus on meeting all the people that are experts in that field. That's what I did. Ultimately, I had this inclination, interest in digital media and marketing side of things, and I just honed in on that and perfected that, and didn't think at the time it was going to be an area of big opportunity, if I'm being honest, and I was quite wrong about that. So for me, that's kind of my big learning and feedback, is to just find something that you're interested in and go after it.
Great advice, Tom. Thank you. Tom R, what's your one bit of advice for our students?
That's cracking advice, Tom. Get to know yourself without sounding too philosophical. Get to know who you are, what you're about, what you like about yourself, what you're proud of, what you don't like, work on it. And with that knowledge and that confidence and that being okay with who you are, anything that then comes, you can approach with a sense of precision, confidence, clarity, direction. And I think if you start there, everything that comes, you'll end up in the right place.
Sound advice, and a perfect way to end this afternoon session. That was a fantastic session, as I said, brilliantly candid, and you can see all the thank yous coming through right now from students in the chat. So looks like everyone has found that really, really useful. Once again, final thanks to Tom and Tom. You've been brilliant. Thank you.
Awesome. Cheers, guys. Good luck.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.